Good afternoon, Cal State San Marcos families. We're so excited to have you all join us for today's webinar. This webinar will be on coaching your student to success in the virtual classroom. I'm excited to see you all connecting and seeing some shared interests or shared locations and whatnot like that. We hope that everyone out there in our fire country stays safe and that those fires don't spread even further, because yes, I agree. We've had way too many in the last couple of years. Excited to see so many of you join us today, and I know a lot more are going to be connecting through our recording a little bit later on after posted on our website. I want to do a couple of housekeeping things, but as I mentioned before, my name is Christiana Moen, and I'm the Director for New Student and Family Programs, and I'm excited to host you today in our family webinar series, Coaching Your Student to Success in the Virtual Classroom for today. If you haven't had a chance to rename yourself, please take a look at our screen right now, and you'll be able to click on the Participants tab. Typically, it's at the bottom portion of your screen. Some computers, I've heard, it is on the top, but take a look. You might have to hover your mouse over to get it to show up. Click on Participants and you'll see More. And then once you click on More, you'll see a renaming option. We'd like for you to name yourself. If there's multiple of you, it's very common for us to have a whole family affair joining us. So feel free to name the folks that are there with you, or the Rodriguez family, whatever you might be, and then in parentheses your student's name. That's also helpful for us to get you checked in so that we can make sure that our call stays secure today, and that we have everyone that's RCP'd joining us within our call. So thank you for following along with that. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick round of introductions and an overview of our presentation. Tyler, if you'll go to the next slide for that. Today we have a handful of folks from our campus that are joining us in addition to our presenters. So I'll actually have them unmute themselves and say hi first. We have Tyler, our coordinator for New Student and Family Programs, as well as a couple of our orientation team leaders. If you all will unmute and just say hi.
Hello everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Alrighty, so you'll see them with, either New Student Family Programs or Orientation Team or O Team next to their names, and they'll be assisting us with the chat and getting you all checked in. So they might also message you privately if we need some support in getting you renamed or anything like that. We also have two esteemed presenters here with us today that I'd like to go ahead and have them introduce themselves. So Dr. Cynthia Melendres, if you'll go ahead and get us started with introductions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening. I'm Cynthia Melendres from the Department of Modern Languages, and I will be talking about what online classes mean. We have Elizabeth Reyes. I'm going to be talking first in English, and then I will have a session with you in Spanish. I'm chatting with you, so if you can see in the chat, I'm translating what they're saying in English so you can don't miss anything right now. Welcome, all of you.
Great, thank you. And next, we have Marnie Eldridge from our first year programs. If you'll go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Marnie Eldridge, and I am currently serving as the Interim Director of First Year Programs. I'm a GEL instructor here on campus. I work predominantly with first year students and assisting them to in their transition from high school to the university. So I'm delighted to share with you some insights that I have on how you can support your student in being successful in their transition to CSUSM.
Sorry, I realized I was muted. Thank you, Marnie. And before we jump into the actual presentations themselves, the rest of the flow of the event will kind of go through a series of our presentations with our two presenters and then open it up for questions. If you have questions as we're going about, please feel free to use the chat feature. You all are muted at this point, but at the end when we do our Q&A, we would be happy to unmute you if you do have a question, and we'll show you how to do the raise your hand feature at that point, and we'll wrap up with some updates, highlights, and things to keep in mind as we progress forward with family programs throughout the rest of this semester and the year ahead. Before we do that, I want to help our presenters out by getting a little bit more information about those of you that are joining us today. So if you wouldn't mind sharing either in the chat, or you can do the yes, no feature. When you click on the participants tab, there's a yes and a no that'll help you out with answering some of these questions, and we'll clear it in between to help. So just a couple of questions. So if you wouldn't mind clicking yes or no. So yes, if this is your first student coming to a university, your first student, and no if you've got several more that have already started at the university level. So I'm seeing numbers come in. It looks like we have majority that are their students are new to the college experience, but a good number of veterans of families that have college students already. So that's helpful to get a good idea of that as well. Fantastic. And then I'll go ahead and clear this one off. And then if you could share if you happen to have a transfer student that you're supporting versus a first-year student. Is anyone supporting a transfer student? Sharing yes, versus if you're sharing a supporting a first-year student. All right, so I am just seeing first-year students. First-year students only. Okay, that's very helpful. That's generally what we had anticipated and expected, but just wanted to make sure that we're being inclusive of other audience members, and if anyone needs support in another direction. Are there any other questions that might be helpful for our presenters to know about our audience today before we jump in? Nope. Okay, fantastic. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Cynthia to kick off our presentation. So we'll unshare our screen here and allow for Cynthia to go ahead and pull up her presentation. And as she's doing that, again, if you have questions throughout, please feel free to put them in the chat. And at the end, we'll offer an opportunity to do the raise your hand feature to verbally share your question if that is helpful to you. So with that, go ahead and take it away, Cynthia.
Okay, thank you. And once again, welcome and thank you for being here. And one of the main ideas of doing this is to make clear, to give you the opportunity to have questions, especially that we are going to remote, right? The remote mode, what that means, what the online classes mean for us as instructors, for the students, and for you as the parents, because it's not easy to understand everything that is going to be on the screen and how we can manage this. Well, when we're taking an online class, the first thing that we have to think about is going to be diversity. There are so many subjects and so many different pedagogies that instructors use to teach that is going to be a lot of differences between classes. You can't expect to one class be the same as the other ones. So that's one point we have to take in consideration. Also, the flexibility that taking an online class. Most of our students work outside campus. So this is going to give them the opportunity to continue to be working, but also is something that we have to be careful, because we are going to have due dates, and we're going to have term frames, and they need to comply with those due dates. So they will have to organize a little bit better. So yes, it's going to be flexible in one hand, but in the other hand, they will need to be more organized. We're going to be using a lot of social media, and it's important because then that means that we're going to be connected with what's going on around us. It's not just the material of the class, but we're going to start doing all these connections outside the classes with what is around, especially this year, 2020, that is really important for all of us. So make sure that your student, if he's, listening to videos or listening to social media and you don't understand, don't feel afraid to ask them, what are you looking at? What are you listening? And maybe the student can explain that to you, and just try to make, feel that it's normal for them to be listening to all this material. Also, everything should be available for them. We have all our resources, academic resources, the tutoring center, the writing center, the clubs and organizations from the school. Everything is going to be available for them in online. So it's not only that they're going to be taking classes, but they will be able to continue with their social lives as well, even though it's through the screen, right? They will still have that individual attention. We're going to maintain that because we will be offering office hours. We'll be offering tutoring services. We will offering all these services and support that they need. So even though it's through online, yes, we are going to offer everything. So don't feel that your son or your daughter are going to be by themselves. Okay, we are here to help them, and we're going to be here to support them all the way through all the semester. They will have some freedom, and in this freedom, that means that they will choose when to do their assignments. They will choose when to do the readings. They will choose when to, attend to the Zoom office hours. So that's normal. So don't expect them to be there from 8 to 9 or from 8 to 2 looking at the screen all the time. No, because the classes are designed depending on the instructor. They're going to be at the same time, or they're going to be asynchronized. So that means that the student will have some freedom in the way he or she chooses to do things, right? And instead of looking as we are forcing to be online, how about if we change that and we see the new educational path and see the opportunity to learn new things? All of us. Remember, this is not only new for the students, but also for you as the parents and also for us as a faculty. There are going to be some challenges. Yes, it's going to be different to create the community that we used to create when it's a face-to-face classes. But we're going to do our best effort to create a community. And with that said, we need to make sure the student is present. What that means, when he has to connect to the class, he has to be there. He has to listen to the class. He has to pay attention to that. That's the way we are going to be creating community. To have an effective interaction, to have an interactive communication with the classmates and with the professors. One thing that is going to be weird or strange for the students is to try to communicate with the classmates. Well, just think about if they communicate through the phone all the time and through social media, maybe they can start looking this class as the same thing. Oh, I can communicate with them the same way that I do through Facebook, the same way that I do through WhatsApp. So they're going to be interacting with their classmates, and they can email the professor all the time, or the writing center, or the tutors. They can be reached for help. Also, one of the challenges that is the big issue is expectations. Students expect that because it's an online class, it's going to be an easy class. They tend to think because it's an online class that they don't have to do as much as they do when it's a face-to-face. They start thinking, well, I can do it in my own time. I can do it during the weekends. I can do it when I have time. That expectation could be wrong, because when it's an online class, it's the same work, but it's a different mode. So they need to be organized better, because things start accumulating and everything is going to be there, and they don't have the professors in there to tell them, don't forget to do your homework, don't forget to do your essay. So they have to maybe create a calendar, maybe create an agenda, maybe have reminders in their phone so they can follow their classes and their assignments. Another challenge is the syllabi. All the syllabi, they're going to be from 2-3 pages, and now because it's online, I guarantee that all the syllabi are gonna be like 10, 12 pages long. Why? Because we are putting all the instructions in there. So is a challenge, because if they don't read 2 pages, now we are expecting them to read my syllabi is 15 pages long. And I'm expecting my students to read all of it. Why? Because in the syllabi, we provide everything that they will need. We provide the links for help. We provide the phone numbers for technical support. We provide links for academic services. We provide links from the library. So we provide everything and we explain what it is. So that's why the syllabi now is longer. And the other challenge that we confront is plagiarism. So we have to teach our students that it's not right to cut and paste from online services like Google, Wikipedia. It's not okay. And it's something that is a challenge because the students see the information so easily that they don't think about, oh, I have the answer here, I'm just gonna copy it to my homework. And they don't see that they're doing something wrong, right? Because it's there. So why I cannot use that if it's there and it's free and it's public? Well, the thing is that they have to cite. They came from the website, they came from Google site, or they came from Wikipedia. So that's the thing that we need to start thinking about it. And if your student have any problem with that, it's normal, because it's the first time that they are going to do classes online. So sometimes they don't know that this is wrong. So if your student is asking you, do you think this is correct? Just make sure they say, do you quoting that website? Do you quoting who is writing that? Some parents are really involved with the students. Some of them are more like independent. So, but if your student asks you, now you know that they need to quote, right? That is not like that. It's not like, because it's there, I can use it freely. So those are the most challenges that they're gonna be confronting the students and we as a faculty too. Now, what synchronous versus asynchronous means, that's really important. Some of the classes are gonna be synchronous. What that means, that they have to meet at the same time of a certain time of the class, and they have to be for the whole class. If the class is Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 to 10, they will meet virtually from 9 to 10, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. But if the class is asynchronous, that means that they will have to do it by themselves, basically, in their own schedule. And what that means is like the assignments, when they're asynchronous, they're going to be, everything is going to be posted in the Moodle in core courses. They will have the dates, they will have the assignments, they will have the videos, they will have the lecture record. So the student will just following the schedule, and they don't have to be there in that time class. That's the difference. When it's synchronous, that means that they have to meet with the professor at the time of the class. Why some classes are asynchronous and why some classes are synchronous? Well, the difference is between, there are classes that they are really kind of independent studies, like the students can do it by themselves. But some classes, they need explanations. They need to go over the material. Like think about chemistry, think about math. Those classes, they need that explanation and the perform or doing some problems that they will need to be synchronized to explain that to the student. And if the student have questions, they can ask questions at that time. When it's asynchronous, that means that the student is reviewing the material by himself. And if he has questions, he has to email the professor. So just, if you see your student on the screen at one time, well, maybe he's taking the class. If you don't see your student on the screen all the time, but he's doing it in bits in the morning, bits in the evening, that's normal because he's taking his own scheduling, right? He's independent, he's an adult, and he's gonna work it out the best that works for he or for her. What type of activities? We have all type of activities um, designed for this semester. So they will be the same thing that they do in the face-to-face classes. So think about this. We're changing the way we're teaching, but we're not changing the material or the quality of the class. They will receive the same quality when it's a face-to-face classes. They will receive the same assignments. There will be individual assignments and there will be groups assignments. And there will be all type of assignments. Some of them they have to record the video. Some of them they will have to do presentations. Some of them they will have to do chats. Some of them there will be discussions. So just think, they will receive the same quality as if they were face-to-face classes. Here is really important. What is our role as a student and as a faculty? For me as a faculty, I want my student to not to figure out how to navigate the class. So we're designing our classes in clear way, in a clear manner, so the student can focus in the material of the subject. They don't need to start like having problems that I don't know how to open the document. I don't know where is the video. I don't know what is the assignments. I'm pretty sure that all the faculties prepare now to have the classes ready for the students. So don't worry about that. But let's say the student still is not clear. You just email the professor and say, I try it, I couldn't make it. Can you clarify this for me? Can you help me with this? It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for support. They need to learn the material as the presential classes, and they have to be on time with the assignments as if they were a face-to-face class, right? They have to be respectful as when it's the face-to-face, and they have to be present. And when I say present, they need to be on the computer when if the class is synchronized. They have to be there for the whole time. Sometimes if they don't want to turn on the camera, that's okay. We understand that could be different situations, could be different indicators. Maybe he's in the car, maybe he's in the kitchen, maybe he's at work and when the class is on, but at least he can be participating with the type of activities that we're gonna have for them ready. Because it's like right now, most of you, they don't have you don't have your camera on, but we know that you are there, right? Because we ask questions and you are answering the chat. Where it's going to be the same thing with the students. We are not going to force them to turn on the camera only if they feel comfortable, but they will be asked. We are going to be asking questions to see if they are paying attention. So it's going to be an interaction, even though they don't have the camera on. That's what I meant. They have to be present. And my role as a faculty is to manage their expectations. Not because it's an online class, make it super hard and super difficult and put every single book in there. No, I have to be, real with my classes, and I have to prepare my classes the way that it's a different way to do it, but I have to teach them correctly. I need to make sure that they understand the material, that they can process the material, and they can produce what they have to produce. So my expectations needs to be clear, instructions clear, rubrics. I have to have rubrics. I have to have office hours. I have to communicate, and I have to set up in advance. What that means that I've been working in my classes for the last 3 weeks, so my class is going to be ready for Monday. Okay. What the students need to do once they register in their classes. First, they have to check if the class is synchronous to make sure that they're going to be attending class, or asynchronous. So they have to check that. After they know what type of classes they're taking, they have to navigate the Google courses. They have to go in the class and see what the class looks like. They need to look for the professor's information, phone number, email, name, and office hours, when they're going to be the office hours. That's really important to use those office hours. Then after they know that, they will have a section that is called Start Here. And they have to navigate that section. What is that section? Well, that section is everything that is in the syllabus. Remember when I told you all the links for support, for help, they're going to be there? Well, we have it in there too. So they can navigate, and if they need help, they will know where to look for that help. They will click on the link, and the link is going to take them to the place that they need to be. And they have to be, when I put their online readiness, what that means, well, they will need a computer. They will need a laptop or a desktop or a tablet, and the tablet or computer need to be updated. They need to download the applications that we'll need for the class. Let's say Flash or Adobe, or they will have to have Word or Pages, depending on the class. So they need to know, that's why they have to read the Start Here and look what the professor is setting to see what you will need for your class. And that's what this means. Make sure that you have the computer, that you have a microphone in your computer, or you have the camera in your computer. Make sure that it's running. And if something is happening and your student don't have a computer, to contact IITS as soon as possible, and they can loan a laptop. If your student, once again, don't have a computer or laptop and they need one, they need to contact IITS to get one. And they will loan a computer to that student. And they're doing it right now. So make sure that if you don't have one, the school is providing you a loaner, okay? And one thing is ask questions. It's really important to don't be shy. Look for help. It's normal. We need help. All of us need help. If you as parents need help and you need to communicate with someone, I can give you my email. You can contact some people in the school. They can help you. The students will have all the links that they need to contact the support that they need. And they can also email the professors, email them, use their office hours. We are here to help them. We are in the same boat. We are experiencing the same things that you are experiencing, and we are here to help each other. Don't feel it's normal to ask for questions. It's normal to ask for help. Also, all our classes are going to be, if we need any accessibility, like if our student needs a special accommodations, we are providing that. The student has to tell the instructor in advance, so we can provide all the videos, closed caption, or if they need to have the documents in a certain way, we are doing that. So don't feel, don't hesitate and let us know. We are going to help your students. We are prepared for that. And for that, I'm ending what is online. And I don't know, we're going to wait until the end, right, to do the questions?
Yeah, but I think we could do a couple of questions that have already come in the chat. Marnie has been helpful in answering some of them, but maybe we want to go through a few of them verbally real quick before we transition to Marnie. And then our orientation team has been putting some of the things that you verbally shared, we've been putting links in the chat to connect folks as well. So such as like the technology, information, Cougar courses, and things like that. So really, I think that some folks have just wanted to get a better understanding of, you know, where they can find this information, which has been answered about Cougar courses for the most part. And then additionally, having an understanding of what a rubric is and how that's utilized. If you want to elaborate or share any more about what a rubric is, feel free to.
Yes. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open my class so you can have an idea what the class looks like and what I'm saying, because that's gonna help you to understand actually what I'm talking about with the Start Here section. Because sometimes we you know, I mention it and it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and I think one thing to clarify too, real quick, it's one of the questions was if there's a balance between both types of classes for every student. And so something that might be helpful to understand is that when a student signed up for classes, it denoted next to that course whether or not it was a synchronous or asynchronous option. And so the student has elected to how that class is going to be taught, so to speak, if that makes sense. And something to also clarify about asynchronous material, if you think about homework, that's asynchronous material. So any class, even if it is synchronous, is going to have some element of asynchronous connected to it, thinking about like that homework element. So go ahead, Cynthia.
That's right. Perfect. So when your student go, this is our Cougar courses. It's going to look like this. And the student is going to click in their classes, right? And they're going to appear their classes. And I'm going to open my class so you can see some, they're going to look this. And you see, I have my information here, how they can contact me, my office hours. I have a video, I have a, you know, I like to have emojis, and I have all the information. But the section that I'm saying that is really important for them is the Start Here. Because here, if I open the technical support, they give you all the what they need. And phone numbers, emails, how they contact them. And this is really crucial for them because sometimes they can play the video, sometimes they can't, or they're playing the video, but they can't listen. So they go to this page and they click in the technical support and student technological help desk, and they will help them. Let's say the student need disability support. They give you the links here. But it's not what they need more. They need Academic Success Center, the library, advising, personalized academic success service. Everything is there. In this section, all the classes will have this section. And the rest of the class, like Mariana, that's your name? I don't know. Was saying is some of the classes will have a component of synchronous and asynchronous. Some classes are going to be just synchronous. It's depending on the instructor. How is not a balance? We can balance that. Is the student who are choosing the class, he's going to decide which classes are going to take. And if the class is, let's say all his classes are synchronized, well, he will have to be on the screen for all those classes. But if he chooses some of the classes asynchronous and some of the classes synchronous, then he can balance himself. The assignments, yes, sometimes they're gonna, it's true, it's a form like asynchronous because they will have to turn in the assignments depending on the time and the day. It's like I have mine to turn it in on Fridays instead of Saturdays because most of the professors are let them not turn it in on Saturdays. Well, I'm gonna do it on Fridays, and some of the professors are gonna let them to turn in their assignments on Sundays. That's, you know, it's gonna be different. So if your student is turning in homework every single day, well, maybe he has 5 classes and each class is different and each class will have a different due dates. So don't be surprised if the due date is on Sunday. We are doing that so they have more time during the week to prepare for that assignment. So sometimes the due dates are going to be on Sundays at midnight, or going to be on Saturday at midnight, or they're going to be on Fridays or Mondays. So here, what we have to understand, and the student will have to understand, they will have to organize themselves, because some classes are going to be saying you have to do forms every Wednesday. And maybe all the classes are asking for forms on Wednesdays. So he will be answering forms on Wednesdays. Or if he has to turn in a big project to start organizing himself or herself in order to be able to comply with the due dates. Because that's the only thing that is going to be different, right? Because we don't have that human contact that to tell, remember, we have to do this when you are in the classroom. Well, just think about, you have to create a community with your classmates and maybe form groups and have a WhatsApp or group, or have a Google document group, and you can, support each other for that class. It's another way to do it.
Great, thank you, Cynthia. So in the interest of time, let's transition over to Marnie if you want to pull up your screen. And while you are doing that, feel free to elaborate on anything else in the chat that you want to, which I know some of them are in your presentation that you'll kind of share a little bit more as well. But with that, let's transition over to Marnie, and then we'll go to Q&A again afterwards.
All right, can I get a confirmation that you can see my screen? Supporting student success? No, screen sharing has stopped.
Oh, it just stopped, yep.
Let's try again.
Yes, I can see it now.
Right.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you all again for joining us and taking time out of your busy day and this very busy time of year to learn more about what you can expect in the online learning environment. And although we are focused on the virtual classroom, I am going to speak into, I think, how we can support students both in the virtual classroom and back in the traditional classroom as well. I introduced myself earlier as the Acting Interim Director of First Year Programs. First Year Programs has been a part of the CSUSM experience for about 28 years. We currently offer a number of first year courses, but our most popular is General Education Lifelong Learning 101. And that actually satisfies the Area E lifelong learning credit that is required for a CSU degree. The title of our course is The Student, the University, and the Community. And the course is very much about helping students understand themselves, helping students understand themselves within the university, and helping students orient themselves within a larger community. I will give you just a little bit of insight. About 94% of our first year students take GEL in their first year. So we see most of your students. And although I have to tell you, I have teenagers, so it always warms my heart when I work with first year students, because it's this time, this wonderful transition time in their lives when they actually begin to appreciate their parents. And I'm going to put this out there that I think that could be delayed. Given that they are still in your homes and that they are going to be having this virtual experience, you might have to wait just a little bit longer for that gratification to come. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. First and foremost, I think that in supporting your students, it is really important to recognize that being a full-time student is in fact a full-time job. Whoa, let's see. So to lay that out for you, 12 units. You need to anticipate, and students themselves working with your students, supporting and understanding that 12 units will require about 12 hours of class time plus 24 hours of study time. So when your students are enrolled in a 12-unit load, the university is expecting that they will be putting about 36 hours of work per week into their degree plan and into their degree program. For students who are taking 15 units, that roughly equates to about 45 hours of work. Students overwhelmingly talk in my courses about the difficulties of getting their parents to actually understand the weight of the work that is expected of them at the university. Learning expectations are different. We are moving away from memorization, right? From that regurgitation that we can quite often see in our high school classes. And we are expecting students to make more intellectual connections across degrees, right? Across departments. That is initially challenging for students. There will be less assignments to make up a student's grade, which means that each assignment has higher stakes. That is also an element that is vastly different from what students have experienced in K through 12 and what they will be experiencing at the university. So in supporting your students being successful, recognize that the weight of the work that they are being asked to do, virtual or otherwise, is the weight of a full-time job. And students who are seeking to work more than 20 hours a week, again, ask your students, wow, can you manage that? That's a conversation I constantly have with your students. Wow, that's really ambitious. Are you going to be able to manage that? Again, talk to students, as much as you can, engage them in conversations about what they are learning and how what they are learning in GEL might connect to what they are learning in their philosophy class, and how what they are learning in GEL in their philosophy class might enrich their writing in their GEW class. And that's a big if. I recognize that some of you, your students might not want to let you into their lives, right? The last person that they want to share this experience with could very well be you. Do your best to engage them. Time management does in fact matter. Encourage your students to create a plan. In this discussion about synchronous and asynchronous courses, it's very easy to chart out the class time for your synchronous classes. Those classes are set. However, I strongly encourage students to go ahead and map out at least 3 hours of class time for every synchronous class, and then consider the additional homework time on top of that. It can be very easy for students to forget about asynchronous coursework. I have seen it time and time again with our first year students who might take 3 synchronous live classes at the university and have 1 online class. And about week 3, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that class. And then 3 weeks in, it becomes really difficult to dig oneself out. Again, encouraging your students to create a tangible plan that they can post somewhere in their room and see it and check in with it, and then expect that they will mismanage time. I tell my incoming freshmen that you are going to mismanage 2 things this year, time and money. And I'm never wrong. Students who end up in a little bit of academic trouble, and keep in mind that students who do end up in academic trouble often find their way through that trouble. They will tell you they mismanaged time. They didn't take enough time on their assignments. They didn't plan enough time to get the larger high stakes work done. Another element of this time is that a semester is 16 weeks, and that includes finals, which means we dive right in and we keep the pace up. Students are often expecting that there will be time to ease into it. No, there will be homework class 1. There will be homework day 1. Assignments will begin, learning begins that very first hour that we get to engage with your students. Students also often believe that there is time to turn things around. Again, we are working in a whole entire 3 units of learning into 15 weeks of class time. By the time students start to wonder how they're doing around week 8 or 9, they've got maybe a 2-week window to try to intervene if they're starting to see that their coursework isn't returning the outcomes that they had looked for. So encourage your students to be asking about their grades. They have a right to know how they're doing, right? Check in with their professors. Ask them how they're doing on that work. Again, I'm mentioning this with I have 2 10th graders, neither of whom want me anywhere near their school lives. So again, doing your best to recognize and at least at the very least appreciate that time will be a huge factor. I encourage you to help your students find stellar study spaces. Support that study space. Where are they going to sit and do that work? And while you're supporting that study space, play defense, help minimize the distractions. If there are siblings or family around, delay, intercept. If there are overwhelming family obligations, be an agent for your student. Help the larger family understand the weight of the work and the expectations that are on their shoulders. I strongly encourage students, do not study in bed. That is a surefire way to mess up sleep. Right? The body and the brain look for shortcuts all the time. If you're studying in bed, the brain will begin to associate bed with learning, and it will turn on when you lay down in bed. So get your students out of bed, encourage them to find an effective study space. Also, encourage them to take breaks. They will be on their computers a lot because we are virtual. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, they're on the computer all the time, they are. They are on the computer all the time. They're engaging on the computer, they're creating work on the computer, they're turning in work on the computer, they're reaching out to classmates on the computer. They might even be attending a school event on the computer. So I do encourage you to encourage of your students that they take breaks, that they get away from the screens and that they get out of the house. Healthy eating will be essential. Exercise will be essential. And of course, emphasize sleep. Learning cannot occur without brain recovery time. Sleep is essential for academic success. Finally, stay positive and have perspective. Help your students stay positive. This experience is not going to be anything like the dream of the university that they have been harboring for years. It's nothing like the narratives that they have seen in popular culture. They're going to face disappointment, they're going to face setbacks, but help them have perspective. One setback doesn't mean that you can't do it, right? It's one singular setback. You pick yourself back up and you continue to move forward. Remember that growth often includes struggle. Turn your students back on themselves. Remind them of the times that they have faced struggle and thrived. Remind them that they can do it. Build up their confidence above all. And that might mean for some of us parents in the room that we really have to kind of tamp down what we might really want to say about our students' study habits, because this isn't necessarily a time of judgment. This is a time of fostering their growth, which means turning them back on themselves. You can do this. You can figure this out. Yes, it's challenging, but you are growing by doing it. Remember that when it's the hardest, it's because your students are actually growing their intelligence. Your students will be building whole new neural pathways in their brains. And that building work is exhausting. They will have headaches, they will be tired, they will want to give up, they will be cranky, they will be at the threshold of growth. Encourage them to lean in. Remind them that they are actually literally getting smarter. I think it's important to acknowledge that breakdowns will happen. The stress is in fact real. Every student vastly underestimates how difficult university life will be. And that doesn't mean that it's the same difficulty for every student. Every student seems to have their own kind of unique experience with this difficulty of transitioning to university life. Listen to them. They're going to need to vent. They're going to need to tell you how hard it is. Believe them, it is. And ultimately know that your students are strong. Students are resilient. They find their way through. They can navigate the anxieties, they can navigate the pressures, and at the end of the semester, it may not look pretty, it may not look the way they thought it was going to look, but they will feel good about having made it through. Above all, expect failure. It will happen. And your job in supporting your students' success is to build on hope and resiliency. And as my colleague Cynthia brought up, it is very, very, very important that you normalize asking for help. Students come from families and cultures wherein they feel that asking for help makes them feel inadequate. Asking for help is actually a deep belief that you are in fact worthy of that help. So turn your students back into the resources that are available here at CSUSM, right? They're paid for, they're part of the tuition. When you see your students struggle, ask, hey, have you talked to your professor? Right? You'll get the response of, no, I haven't, they don't want to hear from me. I'm the one who didn't turn the work in on time. And I always tell my students, well, it can only help, right? If you've already established the most negative outcome, it can only help to ask. Turn your students back towards their peers. Wow, have you talked to your classmates about this class? How are they studying, right? Their peers are in it with them. They can empathize, they can lift up, they can co-support. And here at the university, your students will be learning just as much from their peers as they're learning from their professors. Remind your students that we do have our learning centers. There is tutoring for that, right? They're stressed out, there's tutoring for that. Yeah, oh, there's tutoring for that. We have a STEM Success Center where your student can go to receive tutoring in math and science, workshops and study sessions that they can plan ahead of time and actually invite a tutor in so that they can have specialized attention going over a particular study guide for a particular test in a particular course. We have an amazing writing center that supports writing across disciplines, not just essay writing in our GEW class, but essay writing in philosophy, essay writing in history, essay writing in modern languages. We have our Academic Support Center, and our Academic Support Center actually offers subject matter specific tutoring, psychology tutoring, economics tutoring, history tutoring, accounting tutoring, Spanish tutoring, as well as academic success workshops. And the most wonderful thing about our tutoring on our campus is that it's done by peers who've taken the courses and they've succeeded. They can empathize with what your students are going through. Right? They can make that personal connection. And sometimes, often, it's the peer who's able to talk a student through a difficult situation. Again, in reminding your students of their resources, it is President Ellen Neufeld's personal initiative to ensure that all first-year students have a success coach. They have an individual on campus who's there to help them navigate like air traffic control, the university, and the resources. So if your student is struggling again, right, and you've hit the talk to the professor, you've hit the connect with your classmates, you've hit with the, hey, go to the learning centers, and they're still struggling, have you spoken with your success coach? Maybe they have some insight to help you. If they're struggling with whether or not they've chosen the right major, this often happens in the first year, right? I loved bio, and now suddenly I'm in calculus and chem and biochem. I don't know that I like bio anymore. Maybe I want to look at communications, right? Have those wonderful conversations with your students. Allow them the space to explore. It's really okay to question what you're doing. And then remind them that there are academic advisors on campus who are incredibly insightful about major choices and minor choices. Because sometimes that biochem student who might feel overwhelmed with biology just needs to maybe tap into one of their passions like music, right? They still really want to study biology, but studying biology suddenly becomes worth it if they can pick up a minor in music. Remember that we have our student health and counseling services, and there is no shame in taking care of your mental health. Students have mental health resources on campus, and students have physical health resources on campus. Our physical health services are entirely covered with student tuition. Our mental health services are covered up to a point, and they are incredibly affordable. We have individual one-on-one counseling available, as well as group that we have available. And most students When they struggle with anxiety, they struggle with fitting in, they might struggle with bouts of depression. We find that students meeting with groups of peers who are struggling with the very same things, that is just as effective an outcome as one-on-one therapy. So if your student begins to struggle, right, please overwhelmingly normalize asking for help. There is no shame in asking for help. It's actually a deep-seated belief that you are worth success and support. We also have an amazing Hope and Wellness Center that offers not only workshops for wellness, but opportunities for students to get involved with other students on campus. And I'm sure that your students have heard throughout the orientation process, the weeks of welcome that we have available to them, the events that are being planned through Student Life and Leadership. Encourage your students to reach out and connect, even if it's just once. It can make all the difference. Remember to tell your students 3, 4, and if they need it, 5 times a day that they are in fact worthy and capable of total and complete success. Don't assume that they know it about themselves. Don't assume that that's the talk that's happening in their heads. More than not, first-year students become overwhelmed with the negative self-talk. Be a positive voice that they can channel. Remind them that they can do it. Remind them of all of the times in their lives when they have thrived and believe in their growth. And that, families, is my best advice to you in supporting your first-year students in being successful in any academic endeavor.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. If you will all join me in doing a round of applause before we transition into our Q&A. You can do a round of applause with your reaction at the bottom, or your own virtual round of applause as well. Thank you. It's always so fun to see in the chat the commonalities of things. And Marnie, if you have a chance to catch up in the chat, someone literally thought you were a fly on the wall in their home with how you were sharing information. And so I think it's really helpful to recognize that many families and students are not alone in their situations. And so a lot of what we're sharing with you all today is to really remember and think back to the fact that there's always a safety net, there's always an opportunity, and there's always a resource connected to something on campus. And so keep that in mind. And I'll share a resource too of, I'm overwhelmed. There was so much shared tonight. Where can I start? And I'll share some of that momentarily as well. Tyler, do you want to bring up our screen for questions to help folks see how to do the raise your hand feature real quick? And as we're doing that, please feel free to, we'll show you how to raise your hand in just a moment here, but and then we can unmute you to ask your question. If you wrote something in the chat, there's a lot of things in here that I think would be helpful to go back to and say aloud if possible, to connect with if that's something that we can make happen. A lot of questions were about like how are success coaches connecting with students, and I shared that was in a variety of capacities. Our campus does a number of different communication methods to get outreach to our students, and so I think that they'll use multiple methods to connect and circle back to our students. Something that I think, Marnie, if you want to touch on verbally a little bit further is, when students are rolling their eyes and they're not necessarily receptive to their family providing feedback or engaging and connecting with them, if you have any tips with what that looks like, or Cynthia yourself, if you have any tips from your angle as well to maybe elaborate or share a little bit more about that resistance to the family giving support.
Yeah, I certainly get that. I have my 2 teens in the house, and like I said, I genuinely feel that the gratification and gratitude that is coming your way is likely going to be delayed. Do your best. I think this is a balancing act between letting your students experience this for themselves, letting them experience letdowns, little failures for themselves. The last thing that they want, probably at this time in their lives, is to be micromanaged. So resist that at all costs. This is where it comes back to listening to them. If they have asked you to leave the room, let's leave the room. And when it's a better time, say over dinner, or we're having a great conversation, hey, how are things going, right? Not in a way to micromanage, but in a way to, I am genuinely interested in how things are going for you. That's why I often suggest that parents turn students back to their professors and back to their peers, because those are individuals with whom students are longing to have conversations and probably more willing to have open and honest conversations about their experiences right now. It does not mean they don't love you, and it does not mean that they won't come back and start sharing all of that with you. They are at a developmental time in their lives when they are hungering for a separation.
Yes, and like already mentioned, we are here to listen. The first thing that we tend to do when the student is having a problem, well, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you contact your professor? We start giving them solutions, right? But in that moment, maybe the student just want to vent their frustration, so we need to start listening. And when it's the right time or the right moment, then we can approach the question again and we can try to find a solution together. But it's going to be a lot of those times that the students is going to be frustrated. So we have to learn as a parents, and also as a faculty, to just listen to their frustrations and then later talk about it. It's a good way to deal with that, because sometimes if we think about generations, these generations, they don't know how to wait. They're used to instant answers, instant, solutions. Why? Because everything is on internet. If they are looking for something, they just go to Google and they find the answer right away. So we have to consider that too, that this generation is a little bit different as that we tend to look for help, or ask questions or go to the book and read it. This generation, they go to the phone and they don't find their answer in the phone. They get frustrated. So calm down, let them, deal with the problem. And when they are calm, they will talk about it. And maybe then you can give them suggestions what to do and say, I can suggest this. And we need to start taking out do this, because as soon as they hear do this, I don't know why in our brain is, oh, you want me to do whatever you want me to do. But if we say, I suggest, I recommend, the students start thinking in a different way, and maybe they will start listening better, right? One of the questions that I saw is that how they find the books and textbooks and readings and the material that they need. All that is going to be in the syllabi or in the Moodle. Once they're registered and they have access to the Google courses, they can read the syllabi and everything is going to be there. How they get the books, maybe they will be getting from the bookstore. Some of the books are already on reserve in the library, or they can, most of the professors are posting how to get the books, but it's going to be in the syllabi.
I actually recommend that students wait to attend their first class before they buy books. I know that makes students a little nervous. You want to have everything kind of ready to go. But to give you an example, the GEL text that we use, Connections, is 100% digital. And if students purchase through a link that is unique to CSUSM instructors, they're able to purchase the book at $40 versus $60. So waiting and receiving that prompt from instructors is oftentimes more beneficial than jumping the gun. Sometimes students end up getting the wrong edition. So they go searching for a book. There might be multiple editions. They buy the cheapest one that's out there. Oh, cool, there it is, $8. And the professor has updated and they're now using a different edition of the book. So great question on the texts. I'm going to concur with Christiana. We are committed to consistency and gathering on a university campus is gathering a roughly 20,000 people together at once, which is slightly different than even gathering, say, 2,000 on a high school campus. So the implications of public health are much greater. Any other questions that I can answer here in the chat?
I think that's really helpful.
Waiting list status.
Yeah, just
when the
before we
students gonna
transition real quick, I just want to say one more thing about the book list. There's one other location that students can find the book list, and that is located in their MyCSUSM account as well. And so that will list all of the books that are connected there. From a faculty lens, I think it's really helpful that they're sharing that oftentimes faculty members have a different way of getting the textbook, a way to help get discounts, things like that, which is where it's helpful to wait or look at the syllabus specifically, but there is a full book list listed on MyCSUSM as well for students. Okay, go ahead and transition over to the next topic here about wait lists.
They're asking for the wait list. At this moment, they will know in the first day of classes from the instructors if they want to allow students in their classes. It's depending on how many students there is per class and how many students the professor is going to allow. So that is going to happen the first day of the classes.
Yeah, and I'll also add in our registrar's office is sending a correspondence. I have to go back to my communication. I think it went out today, if not going out tomorrow, to students about helping them understand what quote unquote crashing a class will look like in the virtual sense of it. And so it'll be helpful for students to understand and navigate that. I can try to find that correspondence and see if I can share a little bit better insight on that. But the other thing that's helpful is if your student is, at this point, I would say even like 5, 6 plus on the wait list, they really need to have a conversation with academic advising. And actually, if we can go ahead, orientation team, if you'll put the advising information, the link in there, it'd be really great for them to connect with academic advising. If they are that far back on the wait list, the chances of them getting into that class at this point are slimming quite a bit. And so it's really important that they try to find an alternative option to hopefully fill out their class schedule and get that moving forward. So I'll definitely add that in to help remind them of that. And then Tyler, do you want to talk real quick about our ORNT courses in their MyCSUSM and also in Cougar courses and what that looks like?
Sure. Hello, everyone. So my name is Tyler. I'm the coordinator of new student programs. So I oversee most of our orientation programs here on campus. And so the ORNT course in MyCSUSM and Cougar courses is what we call our post-orientation course. So for first year students, it's ORNT 10. And our post-orientation course, it's not really a real course. There's no lectures, assignments, grades. It's just a collection of links and information and resources to help your student prepare for the start of this fall semester and transition into and through the fall semester. So we encourage your student and maybe you as well, if you're interested, to spend some time reviewing those resources in that course, just to make sure you're familiar with the information in there. So there's no need to worry about assignments or attending any classes for the ORNT course. It's just meant to be a resource to start with the fall semester. And we will also be posting resources in there over the course of the semester, I believe, as well. So keep an eye out for those.
Yeah, and the ad dropping that I had mentioned, that email that's going out to students, I just put the link in there that will kind of help explain it a little bit further. It's kind of gotten lost in the chat now, and maybe I'll do it again. But it says ad dropping courses. And again, you can come back to this recording after the fact, if that's helpful to you. But you can also, before you leave the conversation today, save our chat where we're sending links and whatnot by clicking on the right-hand corner of your chat at the very bottom. It says ... and you can click on that and save it. Just remember that you want to do it at the very end of the conversation so that you can save everything and go back to those links after the fact. So keep that in mind. If you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't caught that link, they're going so quick, it will be saved for you to reference back to at that point. It looks like I'm trying to scan through and catch up with. Go ahead.
Yes, for the student who's taking Spanish, do you mean Spanish 101? If those are the lower division classes, yes, we have those classes every semester, and also during the summer and intersection. So yes, they're going to be available. If the student is doing a major in Spanish, is taking 301 and 302, those classes, yes, we offer those classes in the spring and in the fall.
Yes, and somebody also mentioned about book lists and sometimes there being a delay for books to be sent out to students. And it looks like in your experience, it was about a 2-week turnaround for a book to get sent over. That's something to keep in mind. Professors also oftentimes offer an alternative or an option. So Marnie might be able to speak more to this, but for example, in GEL, our book is digital, and so with it being digital, we do offer a trial period or a free trial time period to allow for students to sometimes, you know, $40 is not something that they have just readily available, that they need to give themselves some time to go purchase the book, or a lot of publishers will do something similar to allow for them to get a physical copy of a book later on. So that's something to consider or keep in mind. I'm not sure if the two of you have any more insight about that timing or the availability of books in that regard.
I think it's going to be different for each publisher. And one of the resources that I would bring to mind is that our Kellogg Library has many of our textbooks on Course Reserve, and those Course Reserves, they have been busy digitalizing in order to facilitate access. So a question that your student can ask their professor is, do you have this text on Course Reserve while I await its arrival?
Great, yeah, and we can put in the chat that that library link for their virtual resources. And again, Stephanie answered the question about email. If ever a student gets locked out of any of our CSUSM systems because the password is the same for all of them, they would need to go back to our IATS help desk. And so Stephanie put the link in there for support in that regard. And our tech services, as Marnie has just said, have been really very helpful. As we've switched over to digital, they're working double time to make things happen and provide services and resources to students. And Cynthia actually mentioned earlier on about making sure that students have what they need. And so if they need a laptop, if they need a webcam, you know, they have technology available to support students as they are, yes, keep calm and call IATS, as they are transitioning into this virtual climate. And so that's something to really keep in mind. And I can repost that link again just so that it's more readily available here, but of the IATS for you. Students have also been contacted about that through email about that service and support that's offered to them in that regard. So with that, we have just a little bit more time. I don't see any more questions right now. I do. I see a question about the library. Is the library staffed each day to communicate online? And the answer is yes. And we can repost in there if one of the orientation team leaders will pull the virtual resources for the library. You can see all the different ways that the library can be connected and outreach to.
Yeah. Oh, great question. So in terms of enrollment for next semester, exciting things will be happening throughout the semester. First, students will be directed into their degree planners to adjust the number of units that they intend to take the following spring semester. Then students will be directed back into their degree planners to look at the courses that have been outlined for them in their pathway. Many of our GE courses, we offer a number of options. So students will be able to click open the select button and see the variety of courses that they can take. And then they can select a course based on their interests. And then students will receive, after that happens, students will receive an individualized time of registration. And by time, I mean like December 8th, 11:22. And students want to be on their computers. They want to have worked through their schedule assistant and have as much locked and loaded in their shopping carts so that they can enroll the minute that their enrollment date goes live. It's great to know that as a first-year student, you actually get some priority registration. Once you become a second-year student, the process will become much more frustrating because you technically have the lowest level of registration, I guess, or Moxie, if you will. So those students who are taking GEL, your students will be coached to participate in the Degree Set Go program at the appropriate dates. Those of you who do not have students who are taking GEL, we still get the word out about checking your degree planner. We use the Cougar Bot. If students haven't signed up for the Cougar Bot or they're not accepting Cougar Bot messages, I highly recommend that they do. And keep in mind that we use this antiquated communication tool called email. And the university, the institution will be using email to directly correspond to your students. So we, of course, in GEL continue to direct students back to their email. Have you checked that email? So they will be emailed about those important dates. I just kind of wanted to circle back very quickly about our most of our resources on campus. Most of our resources on campus are actually using Microsoft Teams to communicate. All students are pre-enrolled in Microsoft Teams. So all students need to do is download the Teams app on their computer or their phone. And the trick with getting into Teams is that you have to use your CSUSM email without the Cougars. So they'll use their same email, their same password for their campus credentials, and they will be voila into Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is the communication that professionals on campus are using. It is the means by which we will be offering math tutoring, science tutoring, writing support, academic success center support. They're all meeting through Teams. Academic advising meets through Teams. Most of our success coaching will be meeting through Teams. PASS will meet through Teams. You're getting the drift here. One of the great things about Teams that I really like for students is that it allows students to communicate with one another. They can FaceTime, they can text one another without having to share any personal information. The same is true for myself and students. Students can call me up on Teams. It literally rings right through the app. And I have called students up right on Teams. It's also a really fast way. Most of our faculty are on Teams. They're warming up to it and coming around to it, but it tends to be a really immediate, quick way to reach out and get a question answered. So Teams and email are going to be the primary modes of communication from the university, supporting our students in embracing that versus resisting it will do much for their success.
Great, thank you. And so somebody had asked about the San Marcos experience and that they're no longer living on campus. The San Marcos experience is still connected for students living on and off campus, as it's kind of morphed a little bit this year, but they will be connected and engaged through their GEL course still. And so that's how that program will kind of continue to persist even if your student is not living on campus this fall. Both Marnie and Cynthia have shared their emails in the chat as well for further follow-up follow-up or questions as needed. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and continue with a few more resources and opportunities for you. So I mentioned a safety net, and like there's so much information. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start with getting my student resources. The Cougar Care Network is a great place to ask questions and say, you know, I remember this course reserves. You know, they use this word course reserves, or you know, I heard about this GEL course, or you know, they mentioned this service or this resource called Cougar Courses, whatever it might be, and you just want some more information or you need clarification on things, our Cougar Care Network is a really great place to start, and then they can help reference or connect our students to the services and resources or answers that they might need to get clarification on anything. So I really want to encourage and have you remember that if you came through orientation this summer, you've heard from the Cougar Care Network, you've heard from our Dean of Students office, but as a point of reference, again, to remind you that this is kind of a good safety net and connective piece. When in doubt, start here. We'll go on to the next slide here as well. And we've talked a little bit about empowerment to your students, and something that this is referenced similarly in our family handbook. And Tyler, one of the orientation team leaders, if you'll put the family handbook link back in the chat as well. But our family handbook is a great resource to you as well to reference a lot of these different departments, the library, the centers for tutoring, the centers for getting involved and connected, our cultural based centers on campus. They're all referenced in our family handbook as an opportunity for our students to get involved and connected, and for you to be familiar and aware so that you can kind of nudge them along to these services. And this, if you read through some of these text messages back and forth from a student and their parent, it's something to keep in mind. The more informed you are as a family member, the better you can empower your student to get the right resource, versus you know, enabling them and you know, adding into that pity party. At the end of the day, there's so many opportunities for them, and you are the best person to kind of nudge along and support them in and being the best student that they can be at Cal State San Marcos and progressing that forward. So some of these are silly, but kind of a funny way to interact and connect with your student. And then as we continue on with our family programs, I just want to remind you all that it takes a village. Tyler, you can go to the next slide or even skip to the one after that. It takes a village to get our students connected and involved in campus. And, you know, you can see from our correspondence with Cynthia and Marnie today that our faculty are engaged and connected and excited to teach your students. They're excited to be a part of our campus community, and that's felt through any center or space on our campus, even virtually. So I really want to remind you of that. If you came through our family orientation, you maybe a reminder to you that we have this go-to orientation. For additional resources, we can put that again in the chat as well. The family handbook I mentioned, and then this webinar series is going to continue. So this is one of many throughout the semester. We'll do about 2 a month to help get you timely information about what's going on throughout the semester and resources provided to you that will help you coach and support your student as they're transitioning in and through Cal State San Marcos. Hopefully you received our e-newsletter. The first one came out this week on Monday. If for whatever reason you did not receive it or you need to get re-signed up for that, our emails are listed below, families at CSUSM for English and Familia for Spanish speaking family members as well. Additionally, another event coming up, which will be the week of October 18th, is our homecoming on campus. More communication will come out about that, especially in our newsletter right before that. But we'll do a family game night, an opportunity for families to socially connect and get connected, engaged with campus as well. So lots of opportunities and ways for you to get and connected with us. Tyler, if we go to the next slide, this next slide will share a little bit more about my hope for getting families more involved in volunteering. So if you are interested in volunteering and supporting families as they transition, maybe not this year, but next year, as you kind of get more familiar with Cal State San Marcos, we would love to hear from you and love to have you support us in volunteering and giving back in that capacity. So don't hesitate to reach out to us via email if that's of interest to you. And then on this next slide here, I just want to share our contact information from New Student and Family Programs as the host of this webinar series. Our website, which is listed there at the bottom, will be how you can find the recordings of these sessions. We'll need to get them closed captioned and then posted on our website. So it takes at least 24 hours for us to kind of make that happen, but you can keep an eye out for those as well. And then we're also on social media. Someone mentioned Snapchat. We are not on Snapchat in particular, but we are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Tyler, if you'll move to the next slide, that'll show our handle. So we are at CS2SM NSFP to follow along with information and highlights as well. And then the final thing I just want to share with you all is that you'll be emailed an evaluation. After attending this, it'll come to you next week. We would encourage you to fill that out to help provide feedback as we grow our web series and our family programs to continue to provide support to families as they transition students in and through our campus community. I do see that there's a handful more questions in the chat. I want to be mindful of folks' time, so I'll go ahead and stop our recording. Give a big round of applause and a thank you to our orientation team leaders supporting today and to our two presenters, Dr. Cynthia Melendrez and Marnie Eldridge of First Year Programs, to Snapshot supporting our session today. So a big round of applause and a big thank you. Again, I will turn off our recording and